Good morning, everyone. We have Dave today who will be sharing his personal journey with Christ. So, this is going to be a time to testify and share about what the Lord is doing in his life. Thank you for tuning in. I am going to add Dave. And thank you, Dave, for that time and for being willing to share with us today.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
good, Monica. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much.
Well, before anything happens and difficulties, please don't anyone be embarrassed for me, and don't be embarrassed for you. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come and chat with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And feel free to go ahead and share what you have to share with us today, Dave.
Well,
And
great.
for the ones that are tuning in in case we have some technical difficulties, please stay tuned and we can go ahead and reconnect if needed. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Monica, no, I appreciate it. First of all, welcome to family, friends, colleagues, students, curious, accidental passersby, haters, whoever you are. I'm just really glad to be able to come and talk to you. It's really something I've been asking myself, why am I doing this? Why am I talking about my story or my journey? In fact, if this is boring, make sure you check in with TRINICY.org and check with Justin and Roxandra, because they're starting a series on apologetics and how to contend for your faith without being contentious. And they did a little intro the other day, and it was really, really wonderful. So one thing that he said, though, that made me think about what am I doing giving my testimony. In fact, testimony is pretty much a Christianized word, isn't it? But he said, a testimony is irrelevant to everyone who doubts the truth. And it's true, because everyone has a story. I mean, you could, if you're a Hindu, you got your Hindu story. If you're New Age, you've got your New Age story. Everyone's got their story, and it doesn't make it right or true. But that I've come up with, my story is important because your story is important. And my story is important because I am just a baton holder in a relay race. And I'm taking the baton from the person before me and passing it on to the person after me. That's why my story is important. And so I'll just tell you, my story is kind of long, but I've decided to shorten it because I don't want to get injured. But I just want to say I was born at a very early age. That's a joke for an old person. But I'm 66 years old. So it's like, how do I tell a 66-year-old journey in like a nanosecond? And it really can't happen. But I can give you a little bit of context of who I am. Since tomorrow is Father's Day, and I'm so proud of my 4 children, their spouses, and our 10 grandchildren, and the wife who is so patient with me that helped all this begin. But tomorrow is Father's Day, and my father just turned 100 years old on February the 11th. And I get to go to today at about 3:45 a porch visit with my father. I honor my father. So much good. I've told him this so many times. I said, Dad, so many good things that are in my life, such as come from you in one way or another. And so he is just a natural, not set up by Trinity or whatever, or by the way, conservative Christians on campus or off campus, or and by the way, our conservatism is really mainly about our faith and how we stick to the scriptural account of what God's plan is for man. But my father was from Wisconsin, and my mother was from McLean, Virginia, and my dad went to University of Wisconsin, Madison, and he wanted to get a job with Kodak to go international. Well, he did, and he got a job with Kodak, not this rapper, the photo company. And my mom was with her dad in McLean, Virginia, which is right outside D.C., and he worked for the Pentagon. And they were being sent to Manila, to the Philippines, right after the war, 1949, 48, I believe it is. And so they went over there in two different ways, two different, purposes. And my dad saw her on the tennis court, and you should hear this. There's so many stories here that I'm not even going to touch, but it's so awesome. He said we dated every night for a month before she went back stateside, except for the nights when she had to wash her hair, which I guess back then is a big deal. So, so they fell in love. They got married in Singapore. By the way, if you don't know the capital of Singapore, it's Singapore. And so they got married in Singapore. And we kids were born, four of us were born in Hong Kong. And people say, why were you born in Hong Kong? I guess the right answer is to be close to my mom. I mean, what is it? But my dad was there with Kodak in Hong Kong. And I spent the first 9 years of my life there. And, there's so many lessons I've learned there, but I could take fun stories about what we did, what I learned being, a Caucasian, a quasi-Asian country, and there's so many things to think about. But we went to an English school starting at 4 years old, and the richest memories of Hong Kong, which means too, please pray for Hong Kong, because right now they're going through a crisis, as I believe the world is in many ways. So Hong Kong has a very dear place. And I was made in Hong Kong, or born in Hong Kong. So much went on with that. Well, my dad was transferred, and we were all transferred with him, fortunately, to Japan. Lived in Yokohama, Japan for 3 years. And we went to an international school in Yokohama. There are 40-some nationalities in this little school, and a Dutch headmaster. And, we could see Mount Fuji from our kitchen window, and, so many different things. But I have to tell you, I didn't notice that people were, maybe I was slow or dumb, but I didn't really notice that people were different from me. We were just all different. So there were some cool lessons there. We would attend a Lutheran church. That my dad was a Lutheran. And then after Hong Kong, we went to Japan. And from Japan, we moved to Sweden. And we lived in Göteborg in Sweden, Gothenburg. And so since our parents wanted us to have a really great cultural experience, what did they do? They put us in a Swedish school the first year we were there. How much Swedish did we know? Zero. Nothing. So nu jag pratar svenska. Now I speak a little Swedish, but not much, because the Swedish kids knew such good English. And so it's really interesting how our culture in the States is pretty myopic, and yet the world has a different view of who we are. But we attended a Lutheran church there as well. The school I went to, the first school, was Swedish school. And so, the Swedish kids spoke with an accent, but spoke such good English that I didn't try to speak Swedish so much. But anyway, the second year we went to an English school. The English school had 40-some children in it. There were 12 in my class, with 3 different grades represented. These are great and rich experiences, but just another step along my way. Am I talking too fast, loud, or without breathing? Okay, I'll just keep going. So we're in Sweden, and oh my goodness, Sweden. We went north of the Arctic Circle. We're the land of the midnight sun, where it just doesn't set during the summer, and just so many great experiences. Well, then we moved back to the scariest place ever, and that was to the States. And I'd never lived in the States before, and this is for my freshman year in high school. Terrified. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do in a cafeteria line. I didn't know how to carry my bags without a bag. My books without a bag. It was a whole thing. So, but this is again where God began to shape my heart, to make me interested, curious. By the way, if you get interested and curious and thinking about spiritual things, maybe it's God whispering. Just a thought. So I remember in Rochester going to Young Life, and I would sing the the Kumbaya songs or whatever. And this one, this is, remember, I'm an old person. So this is like during Woodstock times, and so kids were up there playing guitars, and it was interesting and cool. But And I'd go to a Bible study. I didn't know what it was. Well, I became the president of our youth group in our Lutheran church in Rochester. But if you were to say to me, Dave, what is a Christian? I mean, isn't that a basic question? Not what we all know, like Christian stuff to do, but can we answer quickly? What is a Christian? I couldn't have told you, but I was the president of our youth group. What does that say about where people are and where we are serving? Well, then my dad came to us. How are we doing with time? My dad came to us. I didn't answer. I'll let you answer. And he said to us, kids, I have a chance to be transferred to London. And what do you think? Well, I had a girlfriend. So that wasn't a great idea. He dumped me for a ski instructor in Killington, Vermont. I'm never going to Killington, but no. But so, you know, it was like that was going on. It's for my senior year transfer. So we said, no, Dad. And that was really kind. So we realized, no, this is not right. So we said, yeah, let's go. So we went to London for my senior year in high school. And I have to tell you, these 9 months that I was there were the most significant 9 months. I'm going to tell you, if there are young people watching, well, everyone's younger than me just about, but the things that seem like they're purposeless or they're not your plan. You know, even the scripture says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but the purposes of God will prevail. And, you know, it was the most incredible time for me. There I was in northern London at the American School in London, which is still there, 200 yards or so from the Abbey Road crosswalk that the Beatles made famous. I mean, this place was so packed with culture. It's the city where the first Hard Rock Cafe, you know, what is really important in life, the Hard Rock Cafe. I remember going there, you know, the year it opened and all that. And then I met another girl. Don't even ask. But that was important to me because she was involved with a youth group that was just starting up in London called the London Youth Hub. And what an explosion. I never was the same again in my life, never. So I would go to this thing because I thought, well, why can't I be a leader? Because I was the president of our youth group, but I couldn't have told you what a Christian was, so I felt a little bit ostracized. I remember going to this one, and this is how I remember it. And I remember after the meeting where guys, you know, spoke about something, who knows what, and kids sang guitars and they seemed pretty upbeat. And after the whole thing was over, we were in a basement in downtown London, right near Selfridges and Oxford Street, if you're familiar with that. And the kids are playing foosball and ping pong and whatever. And I remember hearing a man, this is how I remember it. I remember hearing a kid come to someone next to me and say, hey, you're new here, right? And the kid said, yeah. And they said, have you ever seen one of these? And it was a little pamphlet, gospel tract, that said, am I going to heaven? And he said, have you ever seen one before? And he said, no. And he said, well, check here what you think you have to do to get to heaven. And he started checking different things. And the kid said to him, you don't have to do any of those things to get to heaven. Jesus Christ paid for all your sin. And all you have to do is believe that he did that for you. He gives you eternal life. You know, I had written in the high school and back in Rochester, I'd written a poem in our literary magazine about Jesus, about God, but I couldn't have told you and put it together. Right then my brain went, are you kidding me? This is amazing. And so I'm playing foosball. Again, this is how I remember it, a long time ago. And this kid came to me, he said, hey, are you new here? And I said, yeah. He said, first time? I said, yes. He said, have you ever seen one of these? And I said, no. He said, it says, am I going to heaven? What do you think you have to do? I said, you don't have to do anything. Because he said, you don't have to do anything. I said, no, you have to just believe that Jesus Christ died and paid for everything you've done. He took your punishment. He goes, wow, cool. You're a Christian. We're glad to have you here. Little did he know that I was a Christian at probably 30 seconds old. Never been the same. Because of this guy, John Riggs, who was faithful enough to come to London, to come and reach kids. And I was the first kid that came to Christ in that ministry. So here he is, in this chain of events, in this baton pass, where the next one, we don't know who we're passing the baton to. They're just reaching back and we're hopefully passing it into their hand. And then I decided, well, I'm going to go to a Bible college. And I wanted to go for 1 year. I went for 4 and I got my bachelor's degree in Christian education. And then I met this amazing woman who has been patient with me for coming up to 44 years in December, Cindy. And I met her in college. And there's a story. Man, there's some cool stuff in that story, but I can't talk about it right now. Maybe if you come over for a cup of coffee, we can talk about that. But so we decided that we were for each other forever. And then we went, a 19-year-old girl and a 23-year-old boy, back to England to take over the youth ministry, which I had come to know Christ. I was head of that youth group. How did that happen? Many are the plans in a man's heart, but the purposes of God fail. Well, our first child was born there, Tara, and we went back to the States, and I went to seminary and Grace Theological Seminary, and we went back in a church planting ministry. 3 of our 4 children were born in England. And then I found this after all of that, coming to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I got the privilege of teaching high school students, sophomores in high school. I got to teach at North Raleigh Christian Academy systematic theology, what I've been prepared for. Starting the youth ministry, ending my ministry in the youth ministry for 14 years. In fact, if some of you kids are on here, I can't see the stuff that's up on the screen, so it would distract me anyway. But if any of you kids are here, I just got asked the other day to do 2 of my students' wedding. Really? Really? Let me share with you something. And people say, what's your favorite color? Well, my favorite color is 17. What's your favorite number? My favorite number is blue. I mean, those things, I don't know. But and they say, what's your favorite verse? Well, that would be scripture, the Bible. And the cover, it says Holy Bible. I mean, what? But I have to tell you, there is a passage that really speaks of this concept of spiritual heritage. This is why my testimony matters. Because there's some before me, there's some coming after me. We have 10 grandchildren. What will they say of Christ? Let me read you this passage real quick, and then I'll either shut up, leave, or answer anything that Monica, I feel sorry for you, Monica. You just have to sit there.
Oh, don't feel sorry for me. I'm enjoying your testimony.
Thank you. So listen to this. You will enjoy this. Psalm 71, beginning in verse 17 through 19. Oh God, you have taught me from my youth. Do you understand? I came to Christ as a young person. That's why I have passion for, young is, relative, I know. But he touched me, thank God, before I learned to be smart enough to run away from him. It says, oh God, you have taught me from my youth, and to this day I declare your wondrous works. Yes, I retired from the ministry, but my goodness, my days are so full of ministry that I couldn't even explain to you how wonderful it is. So even today, even this morning, I was talking to someone online and talking about Christ and his trustability. Oh God, you have taught me from my youth, and to this day I declare your wondrous works. Listen, now also, when I'm old and gray-headed, right? Now that I'm old and gray-bearded, listen. Oh God, do not forsake me until I declare your strength to this generation and your power to everyone who is to come. I've had the privilege of doing 2 of my children's weddings and some other children's weddings. What will they tell their children? Because I talk to them. What will the people you talk to say of your God? because you are in the relay race. This is what this passage says. Lord, you caught me when I was young. Now I'm old and gray, and you're not done. You're not. And he's not done with any of you. So whether you're on campus, off campus, kicked out of campus, teach at a campus, are paying for your kids' campus, whatever it is, wherever you are, God's not done. You are in a race, runner. You're in a race. You're not done. And there's going to be a day. Sorry. There's going to be a day when we run across the finish line. And this all will matter. Even this craziness that we're going through. It will all matter. And God's hand will be revealed. And it'll be a glorious.
Thank you, Dave. I think your life and the way that the Lord got a hold of you is really amazing. There are some questions. So are you ready to answer some questions, Dave?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So a question from Enoch. Hi,
Yep.
Enoch. It's interesting to hear about your life journey across various countries and cultures. How did those cross-cultural experiences influence your ministry?
Oh, my goodness. You know, I've got a lot of faults, and a lot of people probably watching this know more than some of you do. But I have to tell you, I have never looked at a cultural difference in someone or a racial issue that is tearing our country apart in so many ways. And I've not seen someone as anything than a person. That is just because of my upbringing, not because I'm a great guy, but because of my upbringing. And so when I see for God so loved the world, he loved the world. That means he loves all the races or all the cultures. It doesn't mean he agrees with all the cultures, because a lot of cultures are godless. But he loves the whole world. And so I'm just grateful that while I was a privileged, here's an idea of privilege, by the way. I am not a better person because I've inherited my race or my privileges, but neither am I a worse person because of what people have done before me as a part of my race or with my privileges. I am responsible for Dave Kowalke, and that's big enough. That is a big enough responsibility, and I thank God that Christ took away all my punishment, and I live by grace and mercy. And I will say this before I have to get cut off. My definition of love is wanting God's best for someone, expecting nothing in return, believing it will probably cost me something. If I live like that, I can learn from Christ who loved me like that. And I don't love someone to get something. I don't say, I love you, baby, so that you give something to me. Love is awful. And so if God loved the world, do you know how awful that was? My God, why have you forsaken me? Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. That's how awful the love was that Jesus showed to us. Love is not fun. Want is fun. Like is fairly easy. Love is awful. And we can love like that with Christ.
Yes, a good reminder, of what love indeed is. Also, a good reminder of like the responsibility that each of us have as individuals. So just to be sure, because I know you mentioned like culture, race, kind of those things melts away as we get to know Christ or walk with Christ more close. So do you think that the gospel is presented different based on the difference in cultures?
Oh, goodness. Are you setting me up for a question? Okay, so here we go.
Well, that's actually a question that came from Girl on Fire for Christ 360. I like that name.
I like that name too. Listen to this. The gospel is the most cross-cultural message ever. It's where God came away took off his robes of his rights and privileges, put on the robe of flesh, and came cross-culturally to me. But the message is exactly the same for me as it is for you, whether you're in Peru, Arizona, Hong Kong, wherever it is, the same message. And I tell you this, if my son David is watching, I'll try to keep this real short. When David was a little boy, now David and Liz just had their third child. But when he was a little boy, he'd go to bed and I'd lay on the bed and talk and read and we'd pray together. And his prayers were always like, Lord, we were England, so we had an English accent. Lord, thank you for mommy and daddy. Thank you for the food. Amen. And then I asked David one night, I said, David, and I'm a church planting missionary. And I said, David, are you a Christian? And I asked it blank like that. So he goes, I don't think so. And I thought, great. I'm reaching people for Christ. My son, not even the right answer. And I said, David, do you know what a Christian is? And he said, no. I thought, really good, Dave. And I said, David, what if I told you that mommy and daddy were going out and that you and Erica were staying home and Kristen was there and you had to behave for the babysitter? Yeah, we had to behave. And I said, and what if we came home and said that you were, and Erica ran to us and said, Daddy, David was naughty, he was bad, right? And how would you feel? He said, bad. I said, David, what if Erica said, Daddy, don't punish David, punish me instead? How would you feel? He said, good. I said, that message is good enough for my little boy, good for someone in Hong Kong, good for someone in anywhere. Because it's not a message that changes. The cultural context changes, but the message does not.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you in that answer that you just gave, you also mentioned the different in ages. Meaning like the message is the same, and I think it crosses the boundaries of age and cultures and even language. So that's a really good reminder. And actually, I see that you have maybe your grandson. Someone is saying hi, Papa, and then you have someone that is saying. I believe I saw something that says, oh, I love you, Dad. So you have your family here supporting you. That's really nice to
I
see.
paid them all $5 to show up and make it look like lots of people.
And you have an interesting sense of humor that sometimes I need to think about. And you know that.
Hey,
Roxanne.
Don't care if anyone, old men just care if they laugh. So, I mean, if I'm laughing, I'm happy. If no one else gets
Roxandra mentions that she believes like different cultures reveal different aspects of humanity, and it is so enriching. Mersami says that there are good questions that were mentioned here, and so we have 2 minutes left. Dave, it was a pleasure having you sharing your testimony, and I think perhaps it would be good to have you again to share other portions of your testimony, because the Lord is working on us constantly, right? This is a journey. So as you like the different ages or stages on your life, I'm sure that the Lord has been revealing things little by little, since He is very patient. So I will be actually, I'm intrigued, and I will be glad to hear from you again. Is there some closing remarks that you have for the ones that are connecting with us today?
Yes. I would say to the younger ones, don't let anyone look down on your youthfulness, but be an example. Let the adults around you, the old, I wish I had that. And those of you that are facing retirement, the way I have, in 2 weeks and 4 days or whatever it is she's counting, we don't retire from life or from a thing we're doing. We are in ministry until God takes our breath. And maybe when we take our breath, how we take our last one will be the last sermon that we preach. Don't give up. You're in a relay. Run, runner.
Until our last breath. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for connecting with us
Thanks, Monica.
today, and people are appreciating your testimony, and they want to have you back. So stay tuned for the ones that connected with us today. Thank you so much for your time, and Dave, and for everyone who is connecting with us and claims Christ. May us be good representative of who Christ is in the way that we talk and in the way that we live our lives. Have a good one, everyone. Bye. Bye, Dave.
Bye. You are loved.
Bye.